Hey my loves, I'm Novena-Chanel. I am a counsellor, psychotherapist, a lecturer, clinical supervisor, life coach, and many more things. Let's talk about racial trauma. We speak a lot about intergenerational trauma. It's come a bit of a buzzword, but a necessary word, a necessary description, a necessary way of understanding how trauma is passed on from generation to generation within our family homes, within our family systems. What we don't speak enough about is the effects of societal and socio-political. So the things that are racism, for example, discrimination, microaggressions. Before we go any further, I think it's important to actually explain what racial trauma is. So racial trauma is the psychological injury caused by those who experience, again, racism. That can be microaggressions. So the little things like someone being surprised you're well spoken, or someone making an assumption about your level of education, somebody talking about your hair. Oh, that's interesting hair, or wanting to touch it, or saying that you're defensive or you're aggressive when you suddenly probably just put your face that you're confused. There's little microaggressions. It's outright discrimination in the workplace, in the world, the disparities. It's also direct violence. So we know that there's police profiling, there is violence within the police. It's seeing it one to one. So it could be that you've seen it with people within your own community. It could be that you've seen it vicariously. So you're hearing about it, hearing about somebody going through stop and search and being profiled. That perpetuates the trauma. But also viewing it online or through social media or on television programs, seeing somebody who looks like you, with a black and brown body, constantly being subjugated to violence, pain, deprivation, that in itself brings trauma. Racial trauma has the same impact as some other traumas. So you'll get the hypervigilance, the intrusive thoughts, emotional dysregulation. For some, it's anxiety, depression. For others, it may be avoidant behaviors. For some, it might be assimilation, where almost we lose our self. You lose self, you lose identity to try to survive. So proximity to whiteness, it might mean then that we see, we may see it in the media or in politics, where there is almost a divorcing of self culture and identity to align with those who you feel bring safety or inclusion, but usually to the exclusion of self, which is another thing we'll talk about another day. So yes, importantly, racial trauma is not limited to one-off events. So things like racial trauma is usually prolonged, and because of it being something that's usually happening in the little smaller microaggressions, it's a term that we use usually when we speak about narcissistic wounding. It's death by 1,000 cuts. So it's if someone outright slices you, you see the blood, you know it's happened, you've been harmed. When it's those tiny little cuts, tiny little scratches, it starts to build and build and build, and you're bleeding, but it's tiny things. So other people probably can't see or acknowledge it. It's very difficult for those who are not in a sense of survival every day, dealing with microaggressions, something happening on the news, and praying it's not someone who looks like you. To talk about those tiny microaggressions, it may go over their head. For some, it's ignorance or naivety. For others, it's willful. You know, it's not my problem. But the impact upon those who are subjected to racial trauma is profound. And that's where it comes into intergenerational trauma. If outside your home and your community, you're having to be hypervigilant, aware of the minute facial expressions you may make and how that might be misinterpreted as threat or disengagement or aggression, you're in a place of being constantly, I call it armored up. You're in a constant armor. And what often happens is that when you then go back into your family system or back into your community, you're having to learn how to disarm. And if you haven't been taught how to do that, then that's when the relationships start to break down. If every day you're going to work and you're seeing the inequalities of people who you've trained or you mentor rising above you, or them disseminating and extracting knowledge from you, so that they rise and you don't, then you go back home, you have probably nothing left to give. Nothing left to give. And that could be hard for those who love you to understand, but that is the one of the byproducts of racism. It also, you can see lots of the effects where it worsens our health outcomes. So we see it in blood pressure monitoring. We see that black children, especially in diaspora, are often born with higher cortisol levels. Racial trauma often. As we look at epigenetics, you see the predisposition to more health things like anxiety and elevated risk to mood disorders. If you're having to mask, hold yourself together, almost perform in order to make other people feel safe in your presence, then yeah, you're constantly on. You're going to be more likely to get ill, more likely to be burnt out, tired, stressed, disengaged. So that is racial trauma, and the impact is, as I said, intergenerational trauma, the impact on others that are close to you, whether it is loved ones, friends, community, or our children. When you're out every day having to look after others' feelings and navigate the world, sometimes when you go home, you don't have that for those that need you most. Racial trauma. I'm going to do another video, because one of the things I do speak about in the book, which I think is quite important to speak about racial trauma, is how we cope. Sometimes there are positive ways we cope, sometimes there'll be ones that maybe don't work for us. Probably going to upset my brothers and sisters stateside, but I speak about the racial slur, a word, the N word. I don't personally believe it's a word, I think it's a description. And when we say word, we lessen the impacts, we lessen, almost give permission for others to use it. Oh, it's a word. It just, and actually is a description that dehumanizes. But when we are starting to go through trauma for a prolonged amount of times, our nervous system tries to find ways to almost neutralize it. So that might be through embracing words and trying to change its meaning in order to take away the pain and the wounding when it's used against you. You know, if I cut myself first, then you can't hurt me when you cut me. So you may use the N word yourself. But when we understand the power of language and our neuroception, so that's it works with our automatic threat system. So our neuroception is based on, you know, our attachment style, our home life, our environment, and our belief systems. So if you have a neuroceptive belief that black means danger, because you've been taught that, you've grown up in that environment, then actually you're going to see things as dangerous. You're going to see a man's face like that who's black as being aggressive. I speak about it in the book. I believe it's chapter 12, the neuroception of racism, and I break down how that starts with things like a chessboard and the white going first. There's so much in it. The use of black market, the black magic, blackmail, blacklisted. When we pair black with a negative, ominous, we start to allow alignment with negativity, and that's how for many racial trauma begins as well, because we then have people who neuroceptively see black as less than, deprived, savagery, or dangerous. And if you see something as less than, there's less respect. You may tolerate, but you don't actually want to truly integrate. Racial trauma. Thank you. Have a read of it. Some really, really poignant discussions, but also some freedom and understanding what's going on around us. Thanks for listening.